Chapter 1 of Bill Robertie's series, How to Play the Opening in Backgammon, deals with the opening move. He starts off by establishing kind of your opening goals, and I don't think there's anything kind of seismically different here than you would expecting, although I would just point out that last of his goals, the achieved balance, he's very keen to emphasize the fact that you don't just attack or just try to escape. You try to get your checkers working in harmony, and I think that's a kind of a good tip that we'd probably be aware of, but just worth bearing in mind. I'm not going to go through every move because I've done that early in the series. If you go back to into the Wicklow Backgammon YouTube site and go to the playlist on the opening, I think it might be videos B and C deal with the opening roll. So I'm not going to do every single opening roll, but just kind of highlight, he breaks them into the 4 sections that most people do. The first section, which most people call the naturals, he calls them forced moves, because there's things like if you roll a 3-1, you've got to make the 5 points. There's nothing else to do. So that's what I'm going to say about that one. But he gives an interesting example with the build and split rolls, and he starts with the kind of a 4-3 and how you can, this idea of build and split. So you bring down a builder with a 4-3. The move that I'd like to play is coming 13-9, brings down the builder there onto our 9 point, and then splits at the back. So build and split is the way he calls these rolls. Interestingly, you could do build with the 3 and split with the 4. So you split with the 4 at the back and down with the 3. The problem with this roll, let's start at the top. We've split to our 20 point here. That's the point that black really wants to make. So it's more likely to be hit. It's more of a target for black. And if black hits us, it's more of an impact. Because say black rolls a 3-1. They make their best point, their 5 point, and we're putting the bar. If we kind of look at what the preferred move is, where we split with the 3 at the back. Now if black rolls a 4-2 and hits us, we're still putting the bar. But we can roll a 5 and come in past their blocking point. So if they make their 4 point, we can come in on their 5 point. So it's not quite such a problem to be hit. Plus, as I said, it's less an attractive point for them. They would probably, to be honest, I'd certainly, if my opponents had a checker on my 4 point, I'd be trying to hit them no matter what. But as I said, if we are hit, we can come in past them if needs be. And then looking down at the bottom, our checker, if we just build on the playing 13-10 there, the checker on the 10 point isn't as good a builder. It's far more effective to have the builder on the 9 point down the bottom there. So for that reason, that's the better way to play the 4-3. But Bill Robertie just notes the third way you can play with the 4-3, and I certainly always used to do this, and it's very, very common to see you bring 2 checkers down with the 4-3, you bring 2 builders down from the 13 point, so 1 down to the 9 point, 1 down to the 10 point. Very good attacking position. There's nothing new in anything that I've just said there, but I just was taken by a comment that Bill Robertie made about this. He said the splitting plays are more likely to create mutual holding games. So if we want a simple game, rather than bringing 2 checkers down, we do the build and split, and we split at the back, and we try to create a mutual holding game. If we bring the 2 checkers down with 13-9 and 13-10, it's more likely to create blocking games and ace point games, which are harder to play. Now, I've obviously put the emphasis in white there, harder to play, and also more gammonish. So it's just worth bearing that in mind when you're deciding how to play a 4-3 at the start. If you think you're the stronger player, bringing 2 down is a good choice. If you think the opponent is a stronger player, then maybe build and split creates simpler positions. And likewise, if you're looking for a gammon, if we're at a gammon go position or we're behind in the race, bringing 2 down is probably better. If we're ahead, the build and split roll is probably a better way to do it. So it's going to be a project over the next few months. It's not going to happen quickly. I'm trying to put together one more video about, it's something that some members of the Irish backgammon community were talking about. Are there ways you can improve your PR without doing any different moves? Just playing XG, playing the system a bit. And definitely here's one of them that if you want to improve your PR, maybe build and split is going to give you simpler games, easier choices than bringing the 2 down. Just worth bearing in mind. I'm not sure about that. I'm going to be putting it to a few experts, get their opinion, but just worth thinking about it. It's just struck me in the spirit of this when Bill Robertie said that it'd be worth mentioning this. The other thing he said was, if our opponent is the one who's played 2 builders down, and we then roll a number which doesn't hit, but which gives us the option of splitting, we shouldn't split because the extra builders make a split more dangerous. Now, here, let me show you what I mean before. I'm not 100% sure I agree with him, but here's the situation. So this time our opponent rolled a 4-3. So black has rolled a 4-3 and has brought 2 down. So they're actually up in the top left there. You see the 2 blots there, the 2 builders. And we've rolled a 2-1, so we can't hit them. So the obvious way to play the 2 is play 13 to 11. What do we do with the 1? You could split at the back, but Bill Robertie says don't split because black has all that ammunition up the top there, and they love to hit you. There's definitely part of that. There's another way of looking at it is black is starting to build a strong attacking formation. So rather than splitting at the back, we slot. And slot means you play 1 down from your 6 point to your 5 point. So we're going to slot. If you look at our 5 checkers and our 6 point down at the bottom there, we bring 1 down, we slot our 5 point, and that's the right move. And it's quite interesting because in the opening with home boards so weak, it's very hard to score big errors. That's quite a significant error to have split at the back, 40 millipoint error when it's so early in the game. But clearly, when our opponent has 2 builders there, we should slot. And that's what Bill Robertie says. It says because it's dangerous. So I just wasn't sure because I always think when my opponent has 2 builders there, they're sitting there. Yes, they're builders, but they're also blots. So I like to split because I can sort of target them a bit more. So I just played around with this a bit, and I said, well, look, if instead of rolling a 2-1, we roll a 3-2, and I put this into XG, and definitely XG does not like us playing this splitting with the 3. So we were to split at the back with the 3. Black now has 6 numbers, a 6, a 5, a 4, or a 2, which will hit that checker. So that's a lot of combinations that they could hit and make a point in our head. So we'll put that back, but interestingly, XG does like us to split with the 2. Black still has, 6, 5s, and 3s will make a point in our head. But if they don't make a point, their 2 builders up the top left there are suddenly, we're starting to look at hitting them. So they have a little bit more kind of pressure on them. And I was just taken by that splitting with the 2 at the back and coming down with the 3 is the correct move there, despite what Bill Robertie said. So I'm going to take what Bill Robertie said. He said, if opponents play 2 builders down and we have the option of splitting, we shouldn't split because they're more dangerous. Well, based on what I've been kind of putting through XG, I'm going to just change it and say, if our opponents play 2 builders down, slotting with the 1 is better than splitting with the 1. But splitting with the 2 is fine. And what I like about it is, I said, it turns their builders, and Bill Robertie talks about assets and liabilities. The builders are assets, but turns them into blots that we can aim at and gives them liabilities instead. And I just would temper, I said, what Bill Robertie said there about don't dare split. Yes, slotting with the 1 is better, but splitting with the 2 seems to be better as well. We then moving on to the third type of moves, the runner split moves. Here's an example of this. We play a 6-3. The correct way to play a 6-3 is to come out with a 6, 24 to 18, and down from our midpoint with a 3, like that. It creates that idea, Bill Robertie talks about a balance across the board. But there is another way you can play it. Instead of coming down with the 3, we could just run our back check. We've come out 24 to 18. We could run it further, 3 further. It's not as good, according to XG. Even at DMP, it's not as good. But it's a reasonable role. Bill Robertie says, look, it's a simpler role for beginners, just to kind of run and try and get by. And for that reason, it's not a disaster. It's only a 10 millipoint. It's not even an error to just keep and run. But I was just taken because he takes the 6-2 and compares it and says, no, 6-2, you should not run. Because if you come out with the 6 and then on with the 2, our blot up in the top there has more chances of being hit than when it's now on our 16 point. When it was our 15 point, it had less chance of being hit. But in the 16 point, there's more numbers that will give black a chance to hit us. Plus, if we left there and brought the checker down here, our blot down the bottom is now on our 11 point, which is only 2 chances of being hit. They have to roll a 6-4. Whereas when it was on our 10-point, it had 4 chances of being hit, 5 chances of being hit, much more likely to be hit. Plus on our 11-point, it does covers a lot more ground. So for that reason, with the 6-3, look, if you really want to run, it's okay. But the 6-2, it's an error to run. You really need to be doing the come out from the back and then down with the 2. Finally, the slot and split moves. Slot or split moves. Interesting, again, just using the example of the 2 and the 1. Coming down, I think the 2, obviously, you're going to play 13 to 11 here. What you do with the 1, you can split at the back. So you look at our back checkers on the top right, you can split with the 1 there. Or you can put that back and you can, just down the bottom, the 5 checkers and our 6-point, we can slot our 5-point with one of them. And certainly I have a little mobile XG thing on my phone that I use, and I just put this in to see what's correct. And do you want to even pause and think about which one of those is preferred? The answer is no difference at all. Definitely, the slotting move allows us to build a better attack, and for that reason, yes, there's the obvious liability that if black rolls a 4, they will hit our slotted 5-point and send us right back to the start. But if they don't, we're very likely to make our 5-point and have a huge asset there. So that, for that reason, again, and I've heard 1 or 2 commentators say that if whatever happens here, it will give us an easier game in terms of, again, cheap ways to improve our PR. If we're hit and go to the back, well, look, we've got a defensive game at the back. It's very clear what to do. If we make our 5-point, we've got a very strong, simple attacking game. So for some people say, I've heard people say we should definitely 2-1 is an advantage of that as well. But just going back to looking at that position, I want to go back to the position Bill Robertie gave when our opponent had brought 2 checkers down with the 4-3 roll. And as I said, beg pardon, before you even do that, in Wicklow we usually play to 5 points. So the first XG analysis I gave was playing a 13-point match. At a 5-point match, it's actually correcter, it's better to slot. And if you're a DMP just playing for a single point, it's even more correct to slot. So if gammons don't come into it, slot, you're more likely to win. But with the 5-1, we've less. The 5 is going to come 13 to 8, so we've less diversity to try and cover our point. So for that reason, it's an error to slot. And with the 4-1, we'll play 13 to 9. We'll have more chances of covering the point, but we also have more blots down the bottom there. So for that reason, again, slotting as the second choice there is even more of an error. But this was the point that Bill Robertie had talked about, that you're better off to slot when your opponent has brought 2 checkers down to the midpoint. And they said they've rolled a 4-3, just remember, and up in the top there, their 4-3 is the 2 black checkers, 2 black blots up the top there are their 4 and their 3, and they're starting to build an attack in onto their home board. So when we roll a 2-1, think about it this way. When black hadn't gone first, a 2-1, it's every bit as good to slot. There was no difference in the plays. But now that black is building a better attack, and we want to try and match that, now that in Bill Robertie's theory is that black is a bit more dangerous, we shouldn't split and give them plenty of chances to hit us. For that reason, it becomes quite significant that we should slot our 5-point rather than split at the back. Because, as I said, if we'd gone first, slotting was just as good as splitting. But now that black has gone first and building an attack, it's even more imperative that we slot. And the same applies with the 5-1. As I said to you, it's a very small error to slot if you play a 5-1 to play 13-8 and then 6-5. But if black has gone first, and we just give them a roll of a 5-2 and they've brought an extra bit of diversity into their game, now what do you think happens? Well, now it was a slight error to slot at the start, but now that black has that extra blot on our 14 points, there's just that better chance of building an attack. Suddenly, slotting becomes the right play. So the minute that we're kind of going behind in the game, and I'll be talking about second rolls in the next video, and I've been looking at second rolls, and definitely the minute black starts to achieve anything, it's always right to slot with 6 to 5 with the 1. And it's just, Mitchie said it before, every time you roll a 1, think about slotting with 6 to 5. And this is just another example of it. So that's chapter 1 of the first of the 3 books in Bill Robertie's series. Chapter 2 is the doozy. It's the absolute kind of, it's going to take several videos, I expect, because we're looking at the second row. An awful lot of analysts have things to say about the second row, and we'll look at that shortly.